It's Tuesday. You know what that means. It's time for Ignition with the AEW Fan Hub podcast team. This is the first episode in our fourth year of of shows, and well, let's kick it off with a really good show. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Um, Howdy there to you too, EPW show. Great to see you, Conrad. Um, be sure to check out Conrad and the EPW show, Everything Pro Wrestling podcast, right after Dynamite tomorrow on YouTube. That's at EPW show. They're always really fun, funny, good guys. Give them a listen. Let's get going with our show. And the first thing we're going to talk about is kind of a very relevant topic, and that's we just saw Grand Slam. Um, Let me just back up right now. What did you guys think of Grand Slam? Were you happy with it? And let's even go beyond that. Let's look at Dynamite before Grand Slam. What did you guys think of last week's shows?
Oh, last week's shows were fantastic. I mean, you had great matches throughout. You had multiple title changes. I mean, really good story building for Revolution. You know, I really can't say enough good things about both Dynamite and Collision Grand Slam. Uh, I love both shows, and I mean, Wheeler Yuta got his head shaved. Come
Right.
on, how,
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
hey, it's been more than 70. Well,
Yeah. Just wanted
it's
to
been more than 72 hours.
yeah, let me just break in real quick and say hello to Matt Lopez. He joined the chat. Good to see you, Matt. Always good to see you. Rollins, what about you? What did you think of last week's Dynamite and then Grand Slam on Saturday?
Well, first of all, that promo battle between not John Moxley, excuse me, I was jumping ahead. Between Kenny Omega and Swerve Strickland was unbelievable. The fact that Swerve even made reference to the suspension and everything would brawl out, I was just like, damn, he really went there. So that was great. And then we got two title changes, one of which I really wasn't expecting with Tekla and Chris Statlander, though I kind of got it because if you remember with Hangman and Samoa Joe, they had their regular match at, I believe it was Wrestle Dream, if I'm not mistaken. And then when they did the rematch at Full Gear, that had a stipulation attached to it, that being a steel cage, and Samoa Joe won. So, yes, it surprised me that Tekla won, but at the same time, it didn't. I know a lot of people are going to say, why are they going back to Young Bucks FTR? They could do that match 100 times, and I will watch every single time. Those four guys together just make magic. And then,
Yeah.
in terms of Grand Slam, I certainly wasn't expecting John Moxley and Takeshita to go to a time limit draw. And the other thing I will say about that match specifically, I thought Okada was going to come out and not necessarily come down to ringside because I know all the Continental rules, but I thought like towards the end of the match, his music would play and he would just come out onto the entrance and distract Takeshita.
Yeah. What did you guys catch that the end of the match kind of between I'm talking about Moxley and Takeshita kind of fell flat. Didn't get a really good reaction out of the crowd, and you could clearly see Moxley go to the referee, tell him that he wanted Takeshita to hit the Raging Fire. The referee then went to Takeshita, passed along the information, and then they did it. That was really good communication, and I think it really did saved the match, because without that, that would have been kind of a bummer ending. I mean, it did. It kind of fell flat. Did you guys catch that?
I did, and it worked really well because you could say, like, in kayfabe terms, Moxley's like, we need 5 more minutes. We need to finish this. And, the referee is kind of communicating, and then he gets word, no, we can't. That's the TV time. So you get that, and then you get the build on the end, and you get for a future match, which I'm hoping they do at Revolution. And Moxley's like, through the time limit, there's got to be a winner.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did. I did want to break in because Matt Lopez did chime in the chat saying that I thought Grand Slam was damn good. As a matter of fact, let me put it back up again. He said, I thought Grand Slam was damn good. Ladder match, incredible. Brody, step up as a main event player. Guy, hey, look, we talked about this on Ignition last week. AEW's got to take advantage of Brody King's newsworthiness, I guess is the best way of putting it. I'm sorry, Rollins. Go ahead. What were your thoughts there?
So with the time limit, I actually forgot that the Continental rules are different on Dynamite Collision versus pay-per-view. With Dynamite and Collision, Continental rules are that it's only a 20-minute match, whereas on pay-per-view it's a 60-minute match. So once they went to a time limit draw, I'm like, well, obviously they're going to do the rematch at Revolution. And I was like, well, what about a 2 out of 3 falls match? Until later on, I got reminded, yeah, there's a time difference between the two. So,
Right.
I, I'm pretty sure Continental matches are always 20 minutes. The
No,
only
but not the,
reason
but the pay per view is different.
I
They
thought
do
the only
go
reason they were
pay per
different on
view.
pay-per-view was the tournament
Well,
matches.
the finals, the championship matches are different. In the tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, but pay per view, I do think that unless they specifically change the stipulation, I do think that the normal stipulation is exactly what we saw in the Takeshita Moxley match is 20 minutes, and no outside. I guess you can't even call it interference. No outside, nothing.
right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, from what I understand, if they do the rematch at Revolution, like the no outside interference and all that will stay the same, but the time limit would change from 20 minutes to 60 minutes.
That
See,
could very
that I'm
well
not
be.
sure about.
I'm sure. I'm sure that. Well, I hope that AEW will make that clear to everybody before Revolution. I think one of the weaknesses that AEW has had throughout literally the last couple of years, especially, it's been noticeable because the shows have been so damn good, is that a lot of times you have people that I've seen posting on our Discord and on our subreddit, which, by the way, if you're watching this, the links are right there on the screen for you to join us. But the one of the things that I've seen people saying is that they don't really understand the rules, So Matt Lopez did chime in and says it seems Mox called for a rematch with no time limit on AEW socials. I did not see that, but hey, look, Matt is one of those guys that he's a news hound, and if he says it, it is absolutely true. I absolutely take his word for it. I
Can I
do want
ask you
to.
guys a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Did you think it was the right call for MJF Brody to be the main event instead of the ladder match?
That's one of those things I was kind of like, it would make sense to put the ladder match as the main event because ladder match is a big deal, and it's Kyle Fletcher. I don't know if he's from Sydney, but it is his home country for sure. I forget where they say he's, from. There's also the world title main events, unless there's a special stipulation like a lights out match or when they've done Anarchy in the Arena or the Stadium Stampede. So it's one of those. They weren't wrong or right.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to give a weird answer here. For TV, it was right. For the arena itself, it was wrong. Look, Kyle Fletcher is from Australia, and in my opinion, Kyle Fletcher coming home should have been coming home as the TNT champion should have been the main event. The reason why it wasn't right for TV is that traditionally the last quarter hour of AEW Dynamite and AEW Collision struggle to get the ratings and get the viewership. Also, keep in mind on Collision, it was an extra half hour. So instead of a 2 hour show, it was a 2.5 hour show. So that added to that, it exacerbated that. So, yeah, it kind of made sense to me that you would put the Kyle Fletcher and, oh my God,
Mark
Mark
Briscoe.
Briscoe.
Mark Briscoe. I could see his teeth or lack thereof, but I couldn't remember his name. Yeah, it kind of made sense to me that for TV purposes that they would put that match as the non-main event.
So I get why they put MJF Brody as the main event. That way, spoiler alert, Hangman could come out, and they could set that match up for Revolution. So I did understand that, but the ladder match, it wasn't just the fact that it was a ladder match. It was the fact that it was Game 7 in the series between Mark Briscoe and Kyle Fletcher, and AEW never came out and called it a best of 7 series, which I thought was great. You don't need to call it a best of 7. We know, like, we quickly figured out, okay, this is going to be a best of 7, but it's not like they kept going back to it over and over and over again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so because of all that, I'm like, yeah, it should have been the main event.
Yeah, and I mean, it definitely makes sense. I can definitely see where you're coming from, and it being, you know, the show being on TNT and it being a TNT title match, it definitely could have main evented. I also get what Kelson is saying. Like you want that big match to happen and hopefully retain some of the viewers you lose, but also if you do lose them, you have that big match happen, you know, before you lost them. So it's one of those. I don't. I don't disagree with either of you. You both make really good points. I could. It could have gone either way. Uh, you know, I was happy with the show overall. So I guess this is one of those things that kind of feels like maybe a little nitpicky.
Right. Well, let me ask you guys a question here because we had another match that was maybe not like the greatest match in the world, but it was a very big talking point. Of course, that was the hair, I guess the hair versus hair match. Uh, and I've heard a lot of people say that it really didn't matter. They weren't talking about the ladder match and the world championship match as far as the placement. They just thought it was odd that they were back to back. It didn't matter which one went first and which one went as the main event. It was simply the fact that they were back to back. Do you guys think it may have been a better idea for them to put, say, the ladder match, then the hair versus hair match, and then the main event world championship match?
You know what? I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah,
Go ahead, Chris.
I think that would have worked well because you get the crazy ladder match with all the spots, and obviously the hair versus hair match had some crazy moments and spots in it, but as not as insanely violent and like, oh my God, please don't freaking die, you guys moments. Like,
Right. Well,
but
okay. Well, let's get Rollins in here and let him share his thoughts.
So, just to touch on the last conversation super quick, and then I will answer your question, Kelson. I think part of it is like I'm a sports junkie, so when it's Game 7, that's like the penultimate game. It's win or go home. So, like, that's the other reason I wish the ladder match had been the main event. That's just my sports brain kicking in
Well,
at this
that's
moment.
fair. That's fair.
But to answer your last question, Kelson, it kind of reminds me of Revolution from last year, where I think they went right from the steel cage match between Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay. I think it went, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it went steel cage, Hollywood ending, and then the main event. Or no, I'm sorry, I have that completely wrong. I think it went steel cage match, Omega Takeshita, and then the main event. Do I have that right?
I
I
don't remember. I do remember that the Hollywood ending was not, wasn't up there. Basically,
I
that should have been the main event, but I don't know why it wasn't.
yeah, I think you're right on that. It sounds correct. Like they went, it was like three just insane matches back to back. And I think that's kind of one of the complaints some people have with AEW. It's like, man, we don't have a second to breathe. Like, it's not like I want, a match and then a 20-minute BS segment, but man, after some of these matches, like a little 3-minute break, just, whatever would sometimes be helpful. And it almost kind of felt like that with some of these super shows. Like, we're getting all of these great matches, but it's almost like a marathon session where, like, by the last match, you're almost burned out. And it's like, I just need 5 minutes. I just need 5 minutes.
Yeah. Like,
Um,
you
well,
could use.
let me break in real quick because Matt Lopez did chime in the chat. TNT didn't main. It should have been in the middle of the show, but there's a uh, debate ladder match should have main evented. Yeah, basically reiterating, the thoughts that I've seen a lot of people, in the community share. I'm sorry, Rollins, go ahead.
Um, but the point I was trying to make, whatever the order was with Revolution, like those were three great matches. The steel cage, okay, maybe not Moxley Copeland, but like the steel cage and then Omega Takeshita. And it's like I didn't get even like 3 minutes to really just react to what I just saw because I'm going into another crazy match. Like, give me like a cool down match, So
Right? Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
you do need a breather. I mean, I hate to say it, but you need a bathroom break too, or to put more dips in your uh in your cup so you can dip your chips and stuff like that. You know,
yeah. Or
take
as
the
Yeah,
long
take
as
the
like,
dog
I catch
take
up
the
on my
dogs out.
muscle.
You know, so
honestly, I would kind of like maybe cut down, cut out one match and instead give us, like 3 to 5 minutes between each match where you can set something up for Dynamite. You can, hype up a future pay-per-view. Like we don't need the 20-minute ad breaks, that some shows have, but small breaks in between these insane matches would be
Yeah,
really helpful. So I
like
kind of
even if
feel
you
like
did,
I'm saying my steak too juicy, my lobster too buttery. Like,
right. No, I get it. There's one other thing that I wanted to bring up. Just I just think it's something that's worth mentioning. We once again we saw a title change last week in the TNT Championship. I may be wrong here. I may be off by one, so anybody in the community can go and check. But since about this time in 2025, the TNT Championship has changed hands, I believe, 8 or 9 times. I actually believe it's 9 times. And that's pretty hot potatoing that championship, which I don't mind at all. Then you look at the other championship, its sister championship, the TBS championship, and then the same amount of time, it's only changed hand twice. Went from Willow Nightingale to Mercedes Monet, and then from Mercedes Monet to Willow Nightingale. The other thing I'll mention here is in those 8 or 9 title changes in the TNT Championship, we've had quite a bit of different TNT champions in that time span. Whereas the TBS Championship has only been, you know, and I don't even think I think this is from 2024, not 2025 with the TBS Championship. We've only had 2 women holding the TBS Championship. And I personally, and I've mentioned this before, I think it's kind of a waste to have Willow Nightingale as much as I like her. I think it's kind of a waste to have Willow Nightingale with 2 AEW titles strapped around her waist or held over her shoulders. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I mean, hey, look, I've always said I want the TNT and TBS titles to be like TV titles. I want to see them defended regularly. I want to see them changing hands on a decent basis. And you could use it as kind of that floating title where, like, okay, you really want to get a guy over? Put that TNT title on him, have him go on a crazy run of defenses, and boom, he is immediately established. Same token, you got a upper mid card guy who you're kind of like, man, I want to keep him on TV, but we don't really have a story for him. Slap the TNT title on him, let him have a nice little run of defenses, and then drop it to a kid you wanted, or I say a kid, but a person you want to give the rub to. Like that
Right.
title, just, I mean, the name of the network is on the title. TNT title defended every or at least every other collision.
Yeah,
TBS title defended every other dynamite.
they've done a really good job with the TNT title as far as defending and open challenges and whatnot. I think the weakness here is the TBS title. I understand that the reason why it's been only changed hands twice is because Mercedes Monet had it, and I thought Mercedes Monet run with the TBS title was absolutely terrific. I'm not taking anything away from that. But now that Mercedes does not have the title, it needs to be hot potato. I really do think that it needs to come off of Willow Nightingale ASAP.
I,
I would have much preferred Tekla taking the TBS title than the world title. Put it that way. Although I
Well,
have
it's
no problem with
interesting you
Tekla.
say that. It's interesting you say that, Kelson, because since Willow won it from Mercedes, her one title defense thus far was against Julia Hart on Collision. I don't think that was just a one off. I think now that Tekla has the Women's World Championship, I think Julia Hart's going to be like, well, Willow, I want another crack at the TBS Championship.
I would personally like to see Sky Blue get it, Rollins. To be honest with you, I think Sky Blue deserves, with all the work that she's done, taking nothing away from Julia Hart, I think Sky Blue is absolutely next in line for a title. Whether it's the tag team title, the TBS title, I don't think she's, world title material, but I do think that Sky Blue is up there. I'm sure we'll talk about this, on another week, but I do want to move on because we're trying to keep these shows to an hour, and we've already been going 25 minutes. So we've only got two quarters of an hour left, basically. Um, so let's move on. I want to talk briefly about the signings that AEW has done. We saw Lena Cross debut this week. We saw the Inspiration also debut this week. Of course, the Inspiration debuted at a house show, which is kind of interesting. But I'm sure they'll get a big coming out party, maybe on Dynamite, but absolutely by Collision. They'll get a coming out party. They'll get their graphic. They'll get put on the AEW roster page. But it's clearly that they have been signed. But um, we've also seen men. In the previous weeks, we see quite a few men come in here. So what I wanted to know was, let's throw some names out there and let's decide whether we think that um, AEW or ROH, AEW or ROH, should sign these people. Um, I'll start by saying Dakota Kai. What do you
Yes,
guys think?
I think she'd be a solid addition to the roster. Yeah, I mean, and we were. I remember you mentioning last week that there's a lot of inactive women on the roster, and the number of active women is actually relatively low. So, and most of those who are inactive are for reason, injury, some with visa issues,
Yeah, of course.
whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think Dakota
Let's
Kai would
let's
be
let's just keep it, the answer short if we can,
right. Right.
because there are, and if you guys, matter of fact, since you went first, you answered first, why don't you we don't have to talk about the same people over and over again. So why don't you throw it out a name if you have one? If not, we'll go to Rollins.
I mean, there's David Finley, Gabe Kidd,
Okay,
Hanare.
well, I said a name. I guess, yeah, but when you talk about David Finley and Gay Kid, I guess they're kind of a package deal. What do you think about David Finley and Gabe Kidd, Rollins?
Well, from everything I've read, it sounds like David Finley is on his way to WWE. Like everything I've read is like they're already coming up with creative for him. Um,
Right.
I am surprised Gabe Kidd hasn't gotten like the all elite graphic yet, because like he's involved with Clark Connors in a match or a feud rather with Darby Allen at the moment, and he had that pay-per-view match with Darby. So I'm like, how has he not gotten the all elite graphic yet?
I again, a lot a lot of that probably has to do with, I think it's got to be contractual thing. I personally think when it comes to somebody like Gabe Kidd and Clark Connors, I'll throw Clark Connors in there. I think that they're working toward double contracts or dual contracts with these particular people, uh, because let's face it, and Chris knows more about it than I do, but if you look at New Japan Pro Wrestling 4 years ago compared to today, I don't even know why they would even think of doing a Forbidden Door this year, because there's nobody there that I want to see. Just being honest with you,
I
you know.
will say it. I know she's currently under contract with WWE, but I would love to see Bailey come over to AEW.
Yeah, I mean, Bailey's contract, from what I've heard, runs out at the end of this year, so she's going to be there until the end of the year, and she's going to come probably. I really do expect Bailey to come to AEW to be with her buddy Mercedes Moné. I really do.
Yeah,
Um,
I think a lot of people are hoping that she comes over when her contract is up. I know I am.
there was a discussion on the AEW Fan Hub subreddit today, actually started by me. Actually, it wasn't on the AEW Fan Hub subreddit, it was on the Women's Pro Wrestling subreddit. But I had an idea, again, with dual contracts, but also goes to the women's division. Stardom, of course, and CMLL are part of the partnership with AEW. Um, AEW's already signed Persephone to a dual contract. I really, really do believe that as far as the women's division goes, they are very highly likely to try to sign La Catalina to a dual contract. On the men's side, obviously Mystica would be one, with Templario. There's different men and women in CMLL. But I thought about Stardom. I thought it would be a cool idea. There are a couple of women in Stardom, young women, 18-year-old Azusa Naba, and I think 22-year-old Kiku Furusawa. have stated that they wanted to wrestle overseas. Why not get some of these Stardom women, get some of that, free up some of that money in Bushi Road, because Bushi Road owns New Japan and Stardom, free up some money so they can make their own big signings, put some of these wrestlers on New Japan and on Stardom under dual contracts with AEW and CMLL even, and my idea was to make a faction, because Stardom is very, very, very much faction oriented. Why not get a revolving door of AEW wrestlers going over into a faction with Azusa Naba and Kikyo Furusawa, have them come over to AEW as well and wrestle, in the faction, and just have a like an international faction from AEW and Stardom partnership. And you could even throw, somebody from CML. Olympia's been over in CMLL wrestling her tail off and doing really well. Um, Dark Silhouette, until she was injured, had gotten there. Now she's back, from what I understand, so she may be willing to go back there too. So you can have a big faction in Stardom that CMLL and AEW are participating in paying for, and there's no reason why you couldn't do the same thing. Why not have, I know it's a dead deal now, but it could have been Bullet Club, War Dogs as an AEW and JPW faction.
I definitely love the idea of like a women's international faction. They kind of travel, and you can kind of plug and play wrestlers, here and there. Like you have two or three from Stardom, one or two from CMLL, a few from AEW. You can send them back and forth, and
Exactly.
you can have like say a Maki Ito come over, because I think she's teamed up with, or she's kind of the mentor of the one you mentioned.
She's been teamed up with Kikyo Furusawa quite a bit. And don't
Yeah, so
forget, I
like
mean, you've got, and you've already got wrestlers like Megan Bain has been over in Japan just as much as he's been in the United States, in November and December. Lena Cross has done a lot of time in Japan as well with Sendai Girls. So, yeah, it's not like that AEW doesn't have women's wrestlers who are not willing to go to Japan.
Yeah, for sure. And like you can have them kind of like, okay, you send some of us, we'll send some of ours. They can team up when they're over there. You know, your girls can team up with ours when they come over here. You work that out, and yeah, like just have it be kind of a international faction that's not, they're not always going to be there every week, but some of them will always be in one of the companies representing, kind of.
Yeah, but one of the things that was brought up too while we're talking about factions, um, AEW, with the signings that they've done and where they've been placed, if you've noticed, AEW is kind of building a faction warfare system quite a bit. I mean, think about it. You've got the Death Riders, you got the conglomeration, STP. Um, there's just a bunch of different factions. The Elite are even starting to reform, I guess you could say. You know, so are you for, in AEW, are you for a faction warfare kind of system?
I do think it's interesting that, like with Death Riders versus Don Callis family, for example, they started with a street fight and now they've like gone backwards and done a series of trios matches. It just feels like it should have been the opposite, where they did all these trios matches and then done the big street fight. But who knows? It could be leading to something bigger. Um, so I do like that. But it's just like the Don Callis family has like 25,000 people in it, and the Death Riders only have Claudio, Pac, Wheeler, Moxley, and Marina. So
Right,
Don Callis can just throw all different combinations.
right. But my point is that there are so many factions now that have, at least 2 to 3 men in them, along with women. Skyflight, I mentioned STP earlier. The Crew, they all have now added a woman to their midst. And of course, they are not all predominantly AEW factions. There are, uh, ROH factions in there, varsity, not varsity athletes, but
Premier
premier
athlete.
athletes with Story Denali added to their ranks. Um, I like the faction, and I'm interested to hear what you guys think about this. I like the factions because injuries do happen. And I don't know which wrestler it was, but in the last day or two, I think it was Chris Statlander that said that with these tag titles, trios titles, she would like, I think it was Statlander said she would like the Freebird system to be put in, where somebody goes down, somebody can replace them, no questions asked. Because how many times have we seen titles and stories for titles be put on hold simply because one or more of the wrestlers that were involved in the story were not available due to injury?
Yeah, I know we were talking about it in the Discord a few days ago with someone was like, I didn't even realize Beast Mortos was an ROH tag team champion. And it's like, yeah, that whole thing was kind of weird because you had Sammy and Dustin as the tag champions. Dustin got injured, so Sammy got to get a replacement, and he chose Roosh and did the whole thing. And then Roosh got injured, so Beast Mortos was the replacement. But every time, it was almost like they had them vacate the titles just to put it on the same guy with a new partner. If they would have just had the Freebird rule in effect, it would have just been simple. Okay, there's here's the guy replacing him. Here's the guy replacing him. Uh, yeah, I can definitely see that. And I'm a big New Japan fan. Factions are a big deal there, so I'm a fan of factions. I love the faction warfare. I love seeing multiple matches. Like a lot of times you'll see two guys from the same faction facing. You'll see like three matches with the same factions in it. I mean, so yeah, I'm a big fan of the faction stuff.
Right. What about you, Rollins?
Well, like I said, I'm very much enjoying the Death Riders Don Callis stuff. It just feels like it started backwards by doing the street fight first. But in general, yeah, I like it. It's interesting you're talking about the Freebird rule, because if I remember when AEW did like that big spring break-in show or whatever it was called, Moxley used the Freebird rule, to step in and defend the trios titles when they lost to Joe.
Right. Yeah, they did. And that was spring breakthrough.
Yes.
Right. And it's really interesting. I mean, we talked about Lena Cross earlier being brought in. She's obviously going to Megabad, so I guess it's mega times two bad now because Lena Cross is taller than Megan Bain. Not quite as bulky, but not a shadow of Megan Bain by any chance. I mean, she's a force to be reckoned with. The inspiration, you, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but that's an interesting thing. Where in the world do they go? Uh, I do think that they'll be in a faction because, frankly speaking, there aren't many women that aren't in a faction that are active right now. I mean, really active right now. Um,
I also think it's interesting just talking about like trios and factions in general that like um Jet Set Rodeo or whatever they're calling themselves now. I don't think they've had one title defense of the trios title since taking them from the op. And now you've got Hangman, who's obviously 1/3 of that trio going after MJF. And on Dynamite, Speedball and Kevin Knight were talking about possibly going after tag team titles and
right.
singles titles. And I'm like, you guys are the trios champions. Like, what are
Yeah,
you
well,
doing?
you know, Rollins, I've long been a proponent of just getting rid of the trios championships. I do think that Jet Speed should be going after the tag titles. I do think that Jet Speed should be going after individual titles or being, at the very least, in individual feuds. Kevin Knight and Mike Bailey have proven that they are very capable of putting on engaging as hell matches.
I mean, for God's sakes, like I loved that match between Kevin Knight and Swerve Strickland. And if you remember, during the C2, Kevin Knight beat Okada.
Right. Look at Mike Bailey and Kyle Fletcher during the C2. Those both of those matches that you mentioned, the Kevin Knight and Okada, those are really, really good matches that were also so much in doubt that it made it more interesting to see that. You know, they were interesting matches.
Yeah. I think in regards to the trios titles, it's kind of one of those. It was a last minute decision because
Sure.
they weren't able to re-sign Hobbs, and I think they're just kind of like, okay, you know what, these three guys, they'll be good champions. We'll give them that, but then it's kind of like, okay, I've got to figure out something to do, but I don't know what to do. So I think the trios titles are gonna might be in a weird little kind of holding pattern for a bit. I think the best way would be a trios title match, 3 on 3 on 3, and that way you could have, you know, whoever you want to put the titles on pin someone else if you don't
Right.
want to, you know, have them pinning Hangman or
Yeah, but the
Jet.
thing is that Hangman is kind of, for all intent and purposes, he's out of the trios title loop because he's doing something else right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think you just on a upcoming show you decide Tony Khan, you know, makes one of his wacky match decisions. You know, like he's known for just like, you know what? I think this sounds fun. Let's do it. So you have them say, you know, the main event of Collision on February 28th is a, you know, 3 team trios title match.
Here's the thing, though, with that, okay? When you look at the trios and what you're suggesting, it kind of seems like an afterthought or a big gimmick. If you're not going to take the trios title seriously, which, frankly, AEW hasn't been taking the trios title seriously at all, get rid of them. Make it the trios titles or the 6-man titles, as ROH calls it, exclusive to ROH. There is no reason, no reason. There's no room for the trios titles in AEW. They are the weakest link. Goodbye.
It makes me wonder, just in general. I know we're like supposed to be talking about warfare and factions and all that, but it just makes me wonder, based on our whole conversation, does AEW have too many championships?
Yes and no. And let me explain what I'm saying here. I don't think that AEW has too many championships. I don't think that AEW has enough meaningful championships, and I'm sorry, but the big deal for me has always been the trios championship. It's just not a meaningful championship. It's it is the basement. It's no better than the FTW championship. It just didn't belong. It had some fun moments, but it wasn't really part of the conversation. It wasn't. Let me put it this way: it wasn't bringing in viewers. I believe it wasn't bringing in viewers, and I believe it wasn't bringing in pay-per-view buys. When's the last time we had a decent feud for the trios championship? I would say that the last time we had a decent feud for the trios championship was resolved in Wembley, all in 2023. Everything else has just been filler. That's just the way I look at it.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you on that. I think they have one too many titles. I think world title, that's easy to say what it is. International can be your, upper mid card, like these are the next guys up for the world title. TNT, that's your floater. This is, hey, we want to make sure this guy is getting TV time, so he's going to be the champion. National can be your traveling workhorse title, and the Continental should be gone, and the winner of the tournament should get a title match at Revolution.
Yeah, you see, I even forgot that the national title even existed. And that's a problem with, what I want to backtrack because I said that AEW doesn't have too many championships. They have too many meaningless championships. If AEW had 20 championships and they all meant something, then they don't have too many championships. That's just my
Yeah,
opinion. But really, not the international, the trios championship, the national title, they really don't mean anything to me. Now I'm willing to give the national title a little bit of a break because it's a new title. But the
yeah. I
trios
mean,
championship have proven to be, dog water. I'm sorry, they are.
it,
Ricochet, I will say, Ricochet has done a great job since becoming the national champion. So I I like it a little more than you do, Kelson, though I understand what you're saying in terms of that. Um, and I know one of the last times I was on this podcast, we had a big discussion about like, is Okada holding the international championship hostage? And I haven't been able to get that question or that whole conversation off of my mind.
Right.
And like Okada had like one title defense on Collision. I forget who it was against off the top of my head, but it was a good match. And I was like, wait, this guy, I don't remember the last time Okada actually defended that international championship prior to that episode of Collision. So I have changed my thought process on that a little bit because I remember I was saying, like, no, Okada with the international championship is fine. But now I'm just like, has AEW forgotten about that?
Uh, you know, AEW has a thing where AEW does a lot of tournaments. Whether it's a male tournament or a female tournament, they do a lot of tournaments. And the problem with doing tournaments is that they take time away from other championships. They really do. Um,
well,
it's
and
just that simple.
that is that is one thing I wish they would kind of go with the New Japan design for G1.
I
Every
agree.
champion, every champion is in that tournament, and a win over them gets you a future title match. Like that's how you keep the title scene interesting while you have a month-long tournament going on.
Right. And also, the winner of the G1 or the C2 gets
Yes.
a title shot.
Yeah, they
And
get
then
a
that's it.
guaranteed
They
title
get
shot.
they get it they get a they get the belt or a trophy for the C2, but it's an indefensible title, much like the Owen Hart.
Yeah,
You know,
I'd like to see it as a trophy and just
exactly.
nothing against the Continental title design, but it's not like it's this iconic design or anything. You know, it's a
Well,
nice looking title, but
right,
it's
but
not like one of those I need to see kept around.
the thing that makes the Continental title special is that it's a tournament similar to the C2, I mean to the G1, I mean the G1 Climax, similar to Stardom's 5 star, similar to, well, a lot of tournaments throughout, wrestling promotions. But
Yeah, the old King of the Ring.
yeah, it's exactly it, but there's no reason to have a belt for it. Besides, if you really want to get technical about it, other than the tournament, what's the difference between the Continental and the International title? There is none. So that's just my
But if you
opinion.
hold both, you get the unified title and have three
And
belts.
I hope to God that nobody in AEW ever holds both of those titles ever again, because that was
Hey,
stupid. It was
it's a
dumb. It was confusing. It didn't make any sense to me then, and it doesn't make any sense to me now.
it's
I just didn't
another
like. I just didn't like it.
it's
It
another
was
reason I would be fine with the Continental title going away and being a trophy and the winner getting a world title match.
all right.
You mean like
Well,
what they do at the Owen Hart, where the winner gets a title match at All In?
yeah.
Yeah, you could do it at Revolution.
Well, we've got a little less than 8 minutes to go in the show, so I think it's time to move on to, oh God, to it's a kafabe. It's our little part of the show where we can talk about anything, kind of like bullet points, rapid fire, not really a long discussion, but just making a little bit of a statement. And every week I create a new graphic for It's a Kafabi. And if you are the unfortunate soul that's watching us right now, I'm about to reveal one of the absolute most disturbing graphics I have ever created. Here we go. Three, two, one.
Oh,
And
good God. What is wrong with you?
hey, but I have to say something here. For the people that are listening to this on an audio podcast, it's basically, well, it's not basically, it's Eddie Kingston in a tutu, and doing ballet,
Ballerina.
specifically Swan Lake. But in my defense, have you ever seen Eddie Kingston look that good?
He's never looked more in shape.
He looks fantastic. I mean,
Slim, trim, ready to fight, man.
slim, trim, ready to go with some long ass arms. Short. He's got real short legs and really long arms. Uh,
Which is the opposite of what every ballerina should have.
exactly. Um, I don't know. I don't know what possessed me to do this,
Ah,
but I did. If you notice, I did get his necklace right, and I put the necklace around his neck. That is the actual necklace that he wears.
he did.
So I spent way too much time again on It's a
You should have
Kafabi.
gave him a snively whiplash mustache, though.
Yes,
You should
and
have you should have had him in that T-shirt that said "Redeem these nuts."
yeah, well, that just didn't go well with the pink. Um,
Yeah,
but anyway, just I'm sure somewhere, some way, this will make it out onto the internet. But it's not Swan Lake. It's a Kafabe. Does anybody have a Kafabe? Because I have one, but I'll give somebody else an opportunity to go first.
I have a super quick one.
Go ahead.
I don't follow TNA wrestling at all. I don't know the last time I watched an episode of TNA. I couldn't tell you who the TNA World Champion is or anything like that. But interestingly, TNA is bringing their pay-per-view Rebellion to Cleveland in April. And I just so happen to live in Cleveland.
Yes, you do.
So unfortunately, it's not an AEW pay-per-view, but I don't think I'm going to pass up the opportunity to go see a wrestling pay-per-view, even if it's not AEW.
Well, what does it matter? I mean, if you like wrestling, it doesn't matter which promotion you want that's in your town. Support wrestling. Support the wrestlers. They appreciate it. I have my kafabe is something that I talked about yesterday on our social medias, the AEW Fan Hub social media. I have seen, and I don't know if you've noticed this, if you guys are on social media other than Discord, but there have been, no, no lie, quite a few posts saying, I'm new to AEW. Where do I start? I'm just starting to watch and get into AEW. What do I need to do to get caught up? What would you say to people that are saying that they need to get caught up? Other than watch the shows.
I think I'd ask them what they've most liked with what they've seen and kind of be like, okay, well, I'm going to give you a little history on them and their most important feuds. And then, if you're interested in that, we can talk about more stuff. Don't just start going, well, you need to watch this, and the. Find out what they like, find out what they enjoy from what they have seen, and build off that. That's how you make new fans, not telling them what you think they should watch, asking what they like, and then saying, okay, based on that, this is what I think you'll enjoy.
Yeah, what I usually tell them, Chris, is I tell them watch the show, which is a canned answer, but look at the shows, and if there's wrestlers that you don't know, that you say, hey, those guys are interesting, or that woman is interesting, then go on to the AEW YouTube channel and look up, for example, if you've never seen Kenny Omega before and you see him and you're like, wow, I want to see what this guy is about, you can go on the YouTube channel, you can go on social media, and you can find all kinds of information and matches and snippets and promos that Kenny Omega has done. That's what I would do. I would watch the show, and then what you like and what you enjoy on the show, go back and watch some of that. And in doing so, then you're exposed to other wrestlers and other stories.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, you can be like, I really like what I see from Hangman. And it's like, oh, there's so much good stuff there,
Right,
especially the
exactly.
Swerve feud. Like, and then, yeah, you could be like, okay, see who you like, go watch this, go watch that stuff, and hopefully
Right.
they'll find, like, ooh, I really like this guy too. I really like this person. Oh, that was a great
Yeah,
match.
exactly. But when you look at the AEW Women's World Champion Tekla, I mean, she's really not been in AEW that. I mean, she's been in AEW for about a year now, but she's got a lot more history than just what she's done in AEW. I personally think that what Tekla's feud with Stardom President Teru Okada is fascinating just in and of itself to watch and learn a lot about what Tekla is about. Then again,
Oh,
you've
for
got
sure.
people like, but then again, you've got people, that have frankly always been with AEW other than stints in the indies. They've always been with AEW. Chris Statlander is a good example. Britt Baker
Darby.
is another one. Darby Allin.
MJF.
Hangman Adam Page, really. You could argue for that. I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, he.
as far as in America, exactly. MJF Rollins, perfect. So there are different things to research. Anyway, that's my kafabe. Does anybody else have a kafabe before we wrap things up for tonight?
I mean, I've got the usual New Japan rundown. We had New Beginning in Osaka last week. Really great show all around. I could not suggest it enough. Like, if you like New Japan Pro Wrestling, you will really enjoy the show. I know not everyone has all the time. Top three: David Finlay versus Callum Newman, Gabe Kidd versus Andrade El Idolo, and the Knockout Brothers versus Shota Umino and Yuya Uemura. Uh, Tonight, in like a little under 7 hours, I think. It will be the kickoff of the Fantastica Mania Tour, which is NJPW and CMLL. There's a few wrestlers who have been on AEW before: Hechicero, Mascara Dorada, Mystico, a few others as well. It's always a fun tour, fun show. You see the kind of styles interacting. Kind of a early morning start if you're in America for most of us. I think 4:30 on the East Coast, 3:30 for Central. But it's always a fun show, always a fun tour.
Right. I do want to say something here before we sign off for tonight. Um, when it comes to wrestling as a whole, whether you're a TNA fan, WWE fan, AEW fan, New Japan, Stardom, TJPW, whatever you like, we do have the Everything Pro Wrestling Discord server. The Discord link is on your screen right now, and it will also be in the description of our audio podcast. It's on all of our social medias networks. If you look up AEW Fan Hub on TikTok, X, Instagram, Threads, YouTube, you're going to find our Discord server link. So, literally, there is a wealth of news on the Discord server. We actually have, for example, we have an AEW channel, but we also have an AEW spoilers channel. So the spoilers are very easy to avoid. Just stay out of the spoilers channels. For 24 hours after an event, we don't allow any spoilers in anything but the spoilers channels. Same thing goes for TNA, Stardom, TJPW, WWE, NXT, you name it, and NJPW. We're pretty good about keeping spoilers away from people that don't want to see them. Let's put it that way. And on top of that, our Discord server is very active and it's a heck of a lot of fun. Uh, and it's very friendly. So give it a chance. And of course, follow us on the AEW Fan Hub subreddit. That's pretty much where this all got started. So it's important to us that you join us and have fun with the community. Chris Rollins, thank you for joining me tonight for this episode of Ignition. It was fun seeing us kick off our 4th year of AEW podcast. Unbelievable. And we'll be back Tuesday night at 8:45 Eastern. We're here practically every Tuesday night. The only time that we don't do a Tuesday night podcast is if it's kind of like Christmas Eve or something like that. Family and personal life comes first, always, for us. So, but generally speaking, we're here every single week. We look forward to seeing everybody. And look, leave a comment, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe and follow wherever you're listening to this podcast. Join us on the different social networks. Join us on Discord. This is your community. It's not ours. This podcast team, we are just AEW fans talking about AEW. If you're interested in joining the podcast, just join the podcast. Give us contact us. We'll talk to you. Was it a big Rollins, Chris? Was it a hard thing for you to get onto this podcast?
Nope.
It's
Nah.
yeah. I mean, if you show an interest and you can speak without, well, if you sound better than me, which is not hard, you're in. So
I win.
yay. So anyway, We
Yeah, I
will
mean, I'm pretty
see.
sure I said, "Hey, I went on the podcast," and you were okay.
Yeah, I'll talk to you. And that's just about it. I'll do a brief conversation with you just to find out what you're about, and then you're in. It's as simple as that. And we have a lot of fun. There's a reason why people show up here every week to talk about AEW because it's fun. It's fun. It's our hobby, you know? And, we have to do something in our mother's basements. So this is what we're doing. Anyway, for the AEW Fan Hub podcast team, this is Kelson. Good night, everybody.
And good night, Eddie Kingston.
Sayonara.
I'm sorry, Eddie. I really am.